Hello, BookTube. I had an appointment. I had a series of appointments early this morning, and they took me within striking distance of the Brattle Bookshop in downtown Boston, which, for those of you who are new to the channel, is a used bookstore. I love it dearly. I've been going there for well over a year, and they have two floors of used books on every subject, and then a third floor of rarer things, first editions, collectible items, things you would give some book fancier as a gift. And they have a sale lot next to the building that's full of thousands of other books for $1, $3, or $5 each that aren't in any order except by price. So you ideally you have to go out there and just browse, and I love to do that. And it was a gorgeous day today, just beautiful. The mass of heat and humidity that had been growing and sitting on the city for 3 days just moved off last night, and it was crisp and clear and beautiful in the morning, which didn't really lighten my spirits for my other appointments, but it did give me hopes that the Brattle would be wonderful, and it was. Of course, there were little adventures before I got there. one good, one bad. The bad adventure, I won't need to go into it in detail, but I want to stress once again, as I have stressed in a few other videos on this subject, that if you turn your outside world, especially your mass transit experience, into the law of the jungle, where I know what the courteous thing to do is here. I know basic human courtesy in a crowd. I was raised among humans, so I know what basic human courtesy is here. But social media has told me that I don't need to bother with basic courtesy anymore, so I'm not going to bother with it anymore. I'm just going to ignore the fact that I share the world with anyone. If you do that, if you decide to do that, if you block the doorway of a crowded subway car and don't get off to let the passengers off, don't let anyone get past you, you have absolutely no one to blame but yourself if you are, let's say, jostled. No one to blame but yourself. You are to blame there, not the person who's jostling you. You are to blame for acting like you're all alone in the world, like it's the Wild West, and if I don't want to do something, I won't do it. So that's the bad thing. That's a bad little adventure. A good adventure is also very familiar on this channel. It happens to me all the time. I happened to be going down the street in downtown Boston when right at dog walking hour, and I saw coming up to me on the sidewalk, well ahead of me, I saw a woman walking 4 beagles, and I smiled. I was smiling the whole time. She made eye contact with me, so she saw that I was noticing that I was smiling. And when we were right up on top of each other, she said, "I'm sorry, they get awful skittish around." And I think the next word she was going to say was strangers. But I don't know for sure because I was already squatting down and I was already getting smooched all over by her beagles, who were crawling all over me. They were climbing up on top of me, wagging their stiff little white flag tails. That was wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. And then I got to the Brattle Bookshop. Beautiful day. Got there with no trouble at all. Not humid at all. Dry air. Just lovely. And I wasn't shopping there very long when someone approached me. One of you, someone who watches my videos, just approached me and said, "Are you Steve Donahue?" Of course I am. I mean, you're finding this weird old guy in the sale lot of the Brattle Bookshop. Of course it's going to be me. That is delightful. It is so delightful to get tangible evidence that there are people out there who watch these videos. That is just absolutely delightful. So we had a wonderful chat. Of course, I brought this person inside so that you could get a tote bag, meet the staff, say hi to everybody, have a conversation. It was great. It was absolutely great. If I've said this before on this channel as well, if you are walking by the Brattle Bookshop, or I don't know, anywhere really, if you're walking down the sidewalk and you see me walking Frida, approach. Definitely approach. I guess in the 21st century there is some idea that maybe that's not the right thing to do. And certainly YouTube stars, actual, reflective sunglass wearing YouTube stars, would have their security team taser you if you approach them. But not me. I'm a frail, lonely old shut-in. You feel free to approach. So that was wonderful. And I talked to everybody there, and I also got a pile of books. And I know that I have said many times on this channel that I am downsizing, and that is true. I am My library is in a massive state of upheaval as I try to shift downward the number of books I have. I would like to get to 1,000. I would like to get down to 1,000 print and paper books. But like I said, I know that Ragnarok is coming. So I can feel free to just accumulate books, hand out books, mail books, all that sort of stuff. I hear, I'm distracted because I hear an ear-piercing siren in the distance that's going to approach us in about a minute. But we have time to talk until then. I am in the process of unsettling my print and paper library. Absolutely I am. That's not going to affect my enjoyment of shopping at the Brattle and getting a pile of books, especially since what I'm looking for are keepers. Books that I'm not going to be getting rid of. Despite all the ones that I am going to be getting rid of, books that I'm not going to get rid of, that I'm going to keep. They're going to become part of my permanent library. Part, ideally, of that little book room once it's filled with books. So I'm hoping that some of these are. We'll see. Some of them are certainly finds. And we'll get to those. But we can start with the mass market paperbacks. There were some mass market paperbacks that I got. I got another copy of S.T. Bindoff's Tudor England. For instance, this is a whole series that Pelican did. They did Stuart England, Tudor England, Angevin England, all that sort of thing. I love the Bindoff volume, and I didn't remember off the top of my head what the shape of my paperback is that I have. Because a couple of these paperback purchases were doubles. I knew already that I had them. But paperbacks are dodgy, right? They aren't always made to last. And this one would have been on my mind anyway, because the Tudors are on my mind in a great deal lately. A great deal. Not quite 100% sure, except that, of course, they are my NaNoWriMo project. But they've been on my mind a great deal. I've been rereading a lot and also reading a lot. I got that collection of essays about the period of Henry VIII. So this was on my mind. This would have been perfect anyway. I would have grabbed it anyway. Then this thing, Marvin Harris. I read this thing. When did it come out? Oh, a business card has fallen out. People's Tire Company, Columbus, Ohio. Is that still there? Is People's Tire Company still in Columbus, Ohio? This is from 1977. I was going to say the 70s. I wasn't sure. This is Marvin Harris's book, Cannibals and Kings. I love this book. Absolutely love this book. I had this exact mass market paperback eons ago, underlined and annotated the hell out of it. That mass market paperback is gone. It is in a box of books at the bottom of the Mississippi River. Perhaps it has flown out to sea by now. So I have this again. I don't know if I'll ever see a hardcover of it, but I have the little mass market paperback that made me fall in love with it. Then this is a Pelican classic, same as this Tudor England thing, and it's the same thing. I saw it and didn't know what the shape of my mass market was in. I went and checked. It turns out my other copy of this is in fine shape. So I now have a double of this. This is the complete works of George Savile, of Lord Halifax, who was the Grand Poobah Chancellor under William and Mary, and was a very, very active politician who also did a huge amount of writing. And this is all the writing that he did. An amazing volume that I never see it. And I think it was it was a moonshot for Pelican, because they were hoping that maybe Halifax deserved to be remembered. He doesn't. His writing does not deserve to be remembered. So I don't know that we're ever going to see an annotated trade paperback or anything like that of his work, but I'm glad to have it. And then this thing, a perfect example of what mass market paperbacks used to be. Once upon a time, when mass market paperback, when that wave took over the publishing world, everybody thought, well, this is the future of books. Everybody's going to read everything in this format because it's so cheap, so easy to make, so easy to mass produce, so easy to carry. And so, as a result, for a good, solid 15 or 20 years, you saw stuff in mass market paperback, the like of which you will never see in mass market paperback again. Serious works of history included. This, for instance, would never come out as a mass market today. But also this. This is by Howard Beal, and this is Theodore Roosevelt and the Rise of America to World Power. A work of history about the Roosevelt administration that's actually really good, that I've never seen as a hardcover. I will never see this as a trade paperback. It will never be reprinted. Here it is as a mass market paperback. How good is that for $1? Because things are $1 or $3 outside in the sale lot, you can take all sorts of flyers on things. You can gamble, and I did that for I think one. Only one book. Yes, there's only one. I did that for only one book. This is by Claire Sidney Smith, and it is called The Golden Rain. And it's a little book about her story of her friendship with Lawrence of Arabia. I remember her as a bit character in a couple of Lawrence biographies that I've read. Lawrence of Arabia fascinates me. I've never read this. This would definitely count as Lawrenciana, a minor thing that would if you were writing a new serious biography of Lawrence of Arabia, in other words, if you weren't writing the last four biographies of Lawrence of Arabia, which very much weren't serious, if you were writing a serious biography of Lawrence of Arabia and you were researching, in England or in Indianapolis, you would really, really hope that you could find a copy of this book, and maybe you would pay exorbitant prices online. Not because it would be a pillar of your book, but because you would want to read everything written and published by people that knew him. And that's one of the reasons that I love the Brattle so much, is that these things just turn up there. But you're going to see an example of that. You're going to see a big example of that. Then this next one was another double. And I knew that I had this already. But I knew that the copy that I had was in crappy condition, and this is in perfect condition. So I got it to swap it out. I'll just swap it out on the shelf. This is by Louis Cronenberg, and this is The Republic of Letters. And this is not about the Republic of Letters. That is just a grandiose title that he gave to a collection of newspaper pieces that he did, magazine pieces, periodical pieces that he did, where you're a man of letters, you are well known as a man of letters, so any chance you want to review the new Congreve collection? Can I get a preface to you for, I'm putting together a volume of humorous poetry. Can you write a preface for that? Cronenberg's answer to those kinds of questions was the same as any other person who cut their teeth as a freelancer. His answer was always yes. So he wrote plenty of stuff. I wish that more of it were collected. This is just a tiny fraction of what he wrote along those lines. But I'll take it. It's in much better shape than the copy that I had. And I was happy to see this. And I was wondering if maybe being forbearing enough to get a second copy instead of being picky and choosy would be pleasing enough to the Brattle gods so that they would reward me. And they did. They did. Because it wasn't the only Louis Cronenberg book that I found. I found a book of his that I've only ever read out of a library. I've never seen it out in the wild. This is no whippings, no gold watches. This is his, I don't want to say his autobiography, more of a writer's autobiography. This is a freelancer's and an editor's autobiography. So a lot less of, I had a bunny in the nursery when I was a kid, and a lot more of this guy was a jerk who never paid me. And that is fantastic. I wish that every writer who has that kind of experience would write a book like this. And I know that some of you are pulling your hair out right now, and I'm aware that when I say I wish that any writer who has this kind of experience would write a book like this, I am including myself. And I have not done it. I am aware. Stepped right in that one, didn't I? I loved this guy's writing, and I'd never seen this before, though that was great. Then I mentioned in an earlier Brattle book haul that there were a whole bunch of paperbacks, scholarly paperbacks, mass markets and trades. I haven't got a lot of them because whoever gave up this whole collection, there are hundreds of them, whoever gave them up didn't have quite the scholarly concentrations, the scholarly favorites that I do. A lot of Enlightenment stuff, a lot of Age of Reason stuff that I read it, but I'm not all that interested in it. Very little stuff on the Italian Renaissance, very little stuff on ancient Rome, very little stuff on the Tudors. One of the things in that huge paperback collection that I've just left behind was Cleanth Brooks's book, The Well-Wrought Urn, which was a famous study that he did of poetry. And I've left it behind and thought nothing of it. Thought, well, I don't want it. I've read it and I like it, but not enough to keep it. And then today I was rewarded for that self-restraint with this. A Shaping Joy. Again, a book I have never seen in the wild for sale. And this is, don't be mistaken by this, right? Like studies in the writer's craft. How very serious. Boy, Cleanth, you must have been writing this your whole career. Oh, no. These are just periodical pieces. This is just what I do. Don't let these authors put on airs. They don't ever have a grand game plan ahead of time. They just write this stuff because once you get into the habit of getting a spare $50 now and then for something that you dash off, for being part of the conversation, the thrill of being part of the conversation, you don't ever give it up. No matter how successful you get, you don't ever give it up. So you just keep doing it. Kenyon Review, London Review, New York Review of Books. Once you start, you don't stop. And he started. So he just kept going. And that's what this is. A huge chunk of this is just writing. He's a big fan of a lot of authors that I don't like, but he's very illuminating about them. This thing, I believe, has the saga of a writer and his jobs. This is much more along the lines of just whatever the New York Review of Books or the National Review will pay me for. So who have we got here? W.B. Yeats as a literary critic. T.S. Eliot, thinker and artist. A lot of stuff on Faulkner. He was a big reader of Faulkner. Milton. Marlowe. Wordsworth. So fantastic. I have a whole wall of books like this. I've collected occasional prose like this, even if it's putting on airs. Studies in the writer's craft, my arse. Even if it's putting on airs, I love these books. I have a whole shelf of them, whole wall of them. Thanks to David Murphy, we rearranged my books. Might need more rearranging, but I was overjoyed to find this. Let's see here. What else do we have? We're not nearly done. Oh, right. Okay. There's this thing. All right. We saw a book in this collection here, but this is what I'm really hoping for. You can't push things at the Brattle. You cannot go with a shopping list or any kind of list. You can't go wanting anything. Like, first thing this morning when I was at my appointments and daydreaming about being away from my appointments, I was thinking, gee, wouldn't it be great if I found a bunch of Tudor stuff at the Brattle? But I stopped myself from saying I will look for Tudor stuff because that will ruin everything. The other day I was at the Brattle and I found an old Harcourt Brace Ivanovic trade paperback of Pax Britannica by James Morris. The middle book in a trilogy about the rise, the pinnacle, and the fall of Imperial England, the greatest empire the world has ever known. I found a battered old trade paperback of that middle volume. I love this miniseries, this trilogy. I absolutely love it. And those old Harcourt trade paperbacks are the version that I fell in love with. And so I keep rebuying them because they are not well made. So I read them and they fall apart. They literally break apart. The spine breaks apart on them. But I haven't wanted any of the hardcovers of this trilogy that I have found because they aren't in that livery. They don't look like those old Harcourts. And up until today, I was fairly certain that that design for those Harcourt trade paperbacks was unique to them, and I would just have to keep cycling through those trade paperbacks and never otherwise, until I found this. This is book 3 in the Imperial... In James Morris, this is the last thing James Morris wrote before James Morris became Jan Morris. And this is volume 3, Farewell to Trumpets, where we pass on from Queen Victoria to Winston Churchill. This is exactly what the trade paperback looks like, but this is a hardcover. Okay, I want the hardcovers of Pax Britannica and At Heaven's Command, the first 2 volumes in this trilogy. Now I have the third one in exactly the format that I want. Great. So I will just keep an eye out for the other 2. Okay, then this next one, classic example of my old saying, the Brattle will provide, which one of you actually knitted onto a bookmark for me. What that means, when I say the Brattle will provide, what that means is I can shun Amazon Marketplace, Facebook Marketplace, eBay. I can largely shun things like thrift books because if I develop a want for a book, the Brattle will provide. The Brattle will supply me with that book. Eventually, it will. Provided I'm not pointedly looking for it, provided I'm not making any demands, provided it's part only of a mental inventory instead of anything I'm pressing on the store, I will see it at the shop. I simply will. No matter how unlikely it is, I will. In fact, the Brattle has such high turnover that sometimes I find a book that is incredibly unlikely to find. That Louis Cronenberg book, this thing? This is not exactly common in used bookstores. I found my copy probably 10 or 15 years ago. And when I've been pulling it off the shelf and looking at it, reconsulting what these essays, I have often thought, well, the Brattle will provide. This is not in very good shape, but sooner or later the shop will bring you another one. That's how much turnover they have. I can find a book that is unknown. Well, I've never seen it before, and I will see it again. Now that's being disproved a little by a few elements in this particular Brattle haul, stuff that I've never seen out in the wild before, and that is going to be, we're going to conclude on that note resoundingly. But before we get there, there's a book that I have been reading I've been steeping myself in it. Really, I haven't been leaving it alone. It's a big new volume, relatively new volume, of the letters of John McGarn, the Irish writer. Sprang back into the spotlight for me because a friend of mine just wrote a long essay on John McGarn, on his novels, hinging around the new reprint of The Pornographer. I have been sunk into this volume of letters just endlessly, poring over it just endlessly, until the copy that I got, which was actually a UK galley copy. So it was never meant to be to experience. It never came out in this country. As far as I know, this book's never come out in this country. And that galley copy was not meant to withstand severe treatment, but I kept using it, and it was falling apart and falling apart. I complained about it to the friend who wrote about John McGarn, but I didn't want to let go of it because I told myself, well, it's a UK-only publication of the letters of a writer who's not that well known. No matter how well known I wish he were, he's not that well known. So I was telling myself, all right, well, the Brattle will provide, but it's unlikely that you're going to see this at the shop. Every once in a while, I will get a yen for something that the Brattle, it's going to be a while. Like, for instance, the UK edition, the UK hardcover of Andrew Roberts' biography of Napoleon Bonaparte, with just the white cover, the dust jacket with the fleur-de-lis on it. That's the version of that I would like. Not the American version, which I got for free. Not any of the paperbacks, just that. Sooner or later, that will turn up at the Brattle. But in the meantime, I was doubting. I was thinking, well, you just have to be careful with this Letters to John McGarn, because it doesn't appear to be readily available as an ebook, and I am rapidly destroying the hardcover that I got. What did I find? Oh, it's incredible! Right, this is the UK hardcover. It was just there for $3. And not only that, not only did I find this, which made me skip with glee. Not only did I find this, but also as a gift from the Brattle gods for being patient and not going on eBay, I also found this, which is book reviews, essays by John McGarn, a book. This is also favorite. Yep, this is never going to be out in America, never in a million years. And a lot of this is, My Binky, or, Farm Life, or, my favorite dog, or my favorite cat, or whatever. But a huge amount of this is book reviews. He calls them essays, but they're book reviews. Because he was in the same position that everybody else is. When they get like this, you don't stop pitching, you don't say no. So you stay in the game. I know the examples of writers who ever got into that game and then well and truly got out of it, I can count on the fingers of one hand. They might not like it. They might put on airs about it. A lot of them do. But they still do it. They still do it. I know you just won the Pulitzer, but I'll give you £100. If I want to send you over this thing. Could you write it up? I'll give you £100. I'll give you front of the magazine. You could win 10 Pulitzers. You're still going to say yes to that. You're going to remember when that £100 meant everything. So you're gonna remember that. So you're going to do it. And that's McGarn here doing that. So this is absolutely incredible that I found both of these at the Brattle. Just for the wanting. But they weren't the find of the day. The find of the day was a 2-volume work that I have never seen in the wild before. Never. In a lifetime of hunting for used books on 6 continents. I have never seen these before in the wild, and also they have been extremely hard to get my hands on through interlibrary loan. I'm not going to look. But God only knows what this set would cost on eBay. I don't even want to know. I paid $6. Not $60. Not $600. $6 for both. A total of $6. This is Arnold Toynbee, the great historian Arnold Toynbee, gave a series of lectures a long, long time ago about ancient Rome, which is not a subject that we usually associate with him. He wrote a big, bloated study of history that is the book that sold like hotcakes. It still sells, as far as I know. It's still in print. That's the Toynbee that's not hard to find in bookstores. But he did a series of lectures about ancient Rome, and specifically about the Second Punic War, the war with Hannibal, and the changes that it caused in Rome. Not military changes. He hastens to tell you in the book that this is not a military history of the Second Punic War, but rather, how did the experience of this change Rome? So the first volume is the world before that and leading up to it, the trembles, the hints, the first Punic War. And then the second volume is the aftermath of that. Big, huge volumes from Oxford University Press. And I found them. I found them just sitting there in the sale lot, $3 a piece. Hannibal's Legacy, Volume 1. They even had coverings on them. Hannibal's Legacy, Volume... Is this Oxford? Yeah. And Hannibal's Legacy, Volume 2. just sitting out there. So it's not a question with these things of, oh, I found a patient librarian who was able to track down these copies, no dust jackets, no protection, through interlibrary loan. It'll be 6 weeks until it gets here. Then I'll have 3 weeks to read it. Then I have to give it back. And then I can have Volume 2. It's not that. It's that I get to own them. I get to consult them anytime I want. They are absolute monuments of learning. There are huge footnotes on every page. Incredible. Just incredible. The find of the day, perhaps the find of the year. I am not going to check what these things would cost to buy under normal circumstances. For all I know, I could be wrong. It could be that they cost $1 a piece online. It could be that nobody wants them. But I have never seen them at used bookstores for any price. And it's a subject I actually love. So you can see right away that aside from the Bindoff book, the one we started with, I found nothing from the Tudor era at all. But I still had a great visit. So can we do a Steve Pierman? Hannibal's Legacy by Toynbee. Ex-library copies, Volume 1 and Volume 2, in hardcover, with dust jackets, with plastic protectors. Unbelievable. 2, John McGarren. His occasional prose and his letters, which I badly needed. I badly needed replacement copies, a replacement copy of his letters. I found Farewell to Trumpets. Really want the other 2 volumes in hardcover with this cover design. Remember, the Pax Britannica one had just Victoria in the middle. And Heaven's Command, the first volume, has drawings of a very young Victoria and a very young Albert on the cover. So we found that. We found Louis Cronenberg. Not only the Republic of Letters, but also no whippings, no gold watches. His life as a freelancer. Terrific. Just terrific. I found this thing. Occasional Prose of Cleanth Brooks. Great. Another book of reviews to add to my collection. I found a bit of Lawrenciana, The Golden Reign, a friend of Lawrence of Arabia. Does this thing have pictures? Oh, it's got letters. Oh, that's great. That's absolutely great. Who is this person? Let's see here. Trying to escape his own fame, T.E. Lawrence served under the author's husband at Flying Boat Station Mountbatten. They became close friends. This Golden Reign came after tumultuous events during Lawrence's involvement with the Arab cause, as he saw them being increasingly used as a political weapon and tired, too, of the constant stories, both true and false, which followed his every move. He sought refuge and anonymity as aircraftman Shaw. Claire Sidney Smith narrates in loving detail little-known aspects of Lawrence's character. His love of music and the classics, and above all, his intense self-sufficiency, were very different from the daring adventurer the world knew. Great. Fantastic. Just fantastic. And then a bunch of mass-market paperbacks with Theodore Roosevelt. A scholarly work about Theodore Roosevelt in mass-market paperback. We have the complete works of Halifax, The Trimmer. We have Cannibals and Kings by Marvin Harris, and we have an overview of Tudor England. These old Pelican histories and Penguin histories are often very pithy. They're often very enjoyable to read. I'm sure that this one will be. I mean, I've read it, but I'm sure it'll be wonderful to reread. There's one particular part of Tudor history that I'm interested in. You'd think it would be the part of Tudor history that is going to be the subject of my NaNoWriMo project, but no, no, it's the generation before that. Can't get enough of it. That'll get 2 pages in here, but I don't care. I'll get the rest of it. It'll be just wonderful. And there you go. A massive Brattle haul on the eve of book Ragnarok. But I have no objections, especially as it was nice to meet a viewer of this channel. How wonderful that is. That is just wonderful. So anyway, I'm going to wrap this up for now, but I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.